It is Thursday, May 6th. I'm Sam Cedar.
And I'm Lucy Steiner. Which one of these stories will you be talking about today?
In a big boost for global health equity, the U.S. changes its position on coronavirus vaccine patents. If all goes well, corporate property rights may soon come second to boosting vaccine production. Meanwhile, a federal judge strikes down a federal moratorium on evictions during the pandemic. That's bad news, but on the bright side, the Justice Department will appeal the ruling. And lastly, some high-ranking Republicans are determined to force Liz Cheney from her leadership post in the House of Representatives.
You're listening to Majority.fm's AM Quickie, and these are the stories you need to know.
This encouraging news from the cutthroat global trade wars comes from the Associated Press. The Biden administration is throwing its support behind efforts to waive intellectual property protections for COVID-19 vaccines in an effort to speed the end of the pandemic. United States Trade Representative Katherine announced the government position in a statement yesterday amid World Trade Organization talks over easing global trade rules to enable more countries to produce more of the life-saving vaccines. Tai said, quote, "This is a global health crisis, and the extraordinary circumstances of the COVID-19 pandemic call for extraordinary measures." According to the AP, no consensus, which is required under WTO rules, was expected to emerge from the ambassadors' meeting yesterday and today. But WTO spokesman Keith Rockwell pointed to a change in tone after months of wrangling. Authors of the proposal, which has faced resistance from countries with influential pharmaceutical industries, have been revising it in hopes of making it more palatable. The argument centers on lifting patents, copyrights, and similar trade protections to help expand the production of vaccines during supply shortages. The issue has become more pressing with a surge in cases in India, the world's second most populous country and a key producer of vaccines. More than 100 countries have come out in support of the proposal, and a group of 110 members of Congress, all Democrats, sent Biden a letter last month that called on him to support the waiver. It appears he listened. Consider it a temporary setback. Politico reports that the Justice Department will appeal a federal judge's decision vacating a national eviction moratorium and seek a stay of the ruling pending appeal. U.S. District Judge for the District of Columbia, Dabney Friedrich, ruled yesterday that the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention exceeded its authority when it imposed a nationwide ban on evictions for non-payment of rent in September. The order cited a 1944 public health law giving the Department of Health and Human Services certain powers to prevent communicable diseases from crossing state lines. Congress and the Biden administration have since extended the ban, which is slated to expire June 30th. HHS Secretary Javier Becerra said the administration would fight the ruling. He said, quote, "I believe the president will want to try and correct this, or certainly continue to fight to make sure we don't see Americans dispossessed and out on the street." End quote. Landlords and real estate agents have challenged the ban in courts around the country, arguing that it's unconstitutional power grab by the CDC. They say it has devastating consequences for landlords who now must subsidize struggling tenants' housing under the threat of criminal penalties and hefty fines. Courts have issued conflicting rulings. The Alabama and Georgia chapters of the National Association of Realtors, one of the most powerful lobbying groups in Washington, brought the challenge decided yesterday. You may have won this round, landlords and lobbyists, but the fight is far from over.
Majority.fm's AM Quickie is fueled by JustCoffee.coop. Just Coffee is a worker-owned coffee roaster based in Madison, Wisconsin that has sponsored the Majority Report for nearly a decade. Check out their collection of fair trade roasts, including our own Majority Report blend. And regardless of what you order, receive 10% off your order when you use the code MAJORITY at checkout. And all shipping is free. That's coupon code MAJORITY at JustCoffee.coop.
This update on the Republican psyche comes from the New York Times. House Republicans moved decisively yesterday to expel Representative Liz Cheney of Wyoming from their leadership ranks for rejecting Donald Trump's election lies. Meanwhile, top party leaders and the former president endorsed a replacement who has styled herself as a Trump loyalist. Representative Steve Scalise of Louisiana, the number 2 Republican in the chamber, became the highest-ranking figure to call for Cheney's ouster and the elevation of Representative Elise Stefanik of New York in her place as chairwoman of the House Republican Conference. Representative Kevin McCarthy of California, the minority leader, was also working the phones behind the scenes, urging colleagues to support Stefanik. Trump, who has seethed over Cheney's criticism of him, piled on a short time later, deriding her as, quote, warmongering fool, and endorsing Stefanik. The Times reports that Stefanik wasted no time after Trump's endorsement in declaring her intentions. In a post on Twitter, she thanked him and said Republicans were unified and focused on winning congressional seats in 2022. A spokesman for Cheney signaled yesterday that she was gearing up for a messy fight. Turmoil could come to a head as early as next week, when House Republicans may call a vote to replace Cheney. Speaking at the White House yesterday, President Joe Biden expressed bewilderment at the leadership fight, saying Republicans are further away from figuring out what they stand for than he even thought. It seems it's still Trump's party. With that said, I can't deny I am enjoying watching the Republicans eat Liz Cheney for breakfast. And I also have to admit, I hope they choke on her.
And now for some quicker quickies.
Quicker quickie.
According to the latest enforcement data obtained by the Washington Post, the number of deportations carried out by U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement last month fell to the lowest level on record. ICE deported 2,962 immigrants in April. It's the first time the monthly figure has dipped below 3,000. The less ICE does, the better. The Guardian reports that environmental groups have accused a European prince of killing the largest bear in Romania. This in contravention of a ban on trophy hunting large carnivores. NGOs allege that the bear, who is called Arthur, was shot in March in a protected area of the Carpathian Mountains by Prince Emanuel von und zu Liechtenstein. Rest in peace, Arthur. We hardly knew you. The AP reports that more than 200 global organizations urged the UN Security Council yesterday to impose an arms embargo on Myanmar. The military there has killed at least 769 people since the February 1st coup and detained several thousand activists, journalists, civil servants, and politicians, which is a good reason to stop selling them bullets. According to the New York Times, a Facebook-appointed panel yesterday upheld the social network's ban of Donald Trump after the insurrection in Washington in January. Facebook's oversight board ruled the social network was right to bar Trump, saying he created an environment where a serious risk of violence was possible, not to mention his constant whining. Maybe it's time to keep Trump banned and break up Facebook.
Quicker quickie.
That's all for the AM Quickie. Join us this afternoon live at noon on the Majority Report or later as a podcast.